Well, but we are closer to having these general manager vacancies and coaching vacancies filled. We had
There's the
11 total
pro
vacancies
segue.
entering today, and now we have one of them filled. It is Joe Schoen. This is going to be one of those names where people aren't going to know how to pronounce it. Is it Shine? Is it Schoen? Is it Schoen? It's Schoen. He's the new general manager of the New York Giants. And we never would have expected this. We thought it was going to be an inside job. We thought it was going to be somebody from the front office like a Kevin Abrams or somebody, who was acquainted with Joe Judge back when we thought Joe Judge was safe. They go outside the box, outside the organization. They pluck someone from the Bills front office, former Bills assistant GM, Joe Schoen, now the GM of the New York Football Giants.
Well, Mike, you know what this makes me think of? Honestly, it's that kind of 11-minute rant that Joe Judge went on. And maybe what did that rant do to kind of change the shape and the direction of the franchise? All right, because before that, we had heard that Joe Judge was safe, that things were going to be okay with Joe Judge. And that's really why there was that impression that they would just raise up somebody from the front office. But really, after that, everything really seemed to change. The franchise kind of bottomed out there. We heard Mara talking about, I just don't feel like I can say that the franchise is headed in the right direction. And maybe that made the family and Steve Tisch as well take a step back and say, we've got to really rethink how we're doing things. And I think going to an organization like the Bills and getting a guy like Joe Schoen, who's been not just around the Bills, but also around the Miami Dolphins, right? He came up starting with the Panthers as well. He's been in different situations, and now he can start setting a different direction for the New York Giants. And I think, especially over the last few years and the different regimes that we've seen from them, they need that. So now they have it, and I think that's a good thing.
Look how depressing that graphic is. If you live in and around New York City, the Giants and the Jets tied for the worst records over the last 5 seasons at 22 and 59. The Giants haven't won a playoff game since Super Bowl 46. They haven't been to the playoffs since the notorious boat cruise on the day off for Odell Beckham Jr. and others when they played at Lambeau Field 5 years ago. And now Joe Schoen will begin the process of finding the successor to Joe Judge, who was there for 2 years, after Pat Shurmur, who was there for 2 years, after Ben McAdoo, who was there for 2 years. We'll talk about McAdoo in a moment. Schoen says his immediate focus is to hire a head coach and will cast a wide net. Brian Daboll, the Bills' offensive coordinator, already linked to the job. Obviously, Schoen knows him. Leslie Frazier, the Bills' defensive coordinator, should be linked to it as well. And there's been some discussion that maybe Brian Flores now emerges as a possibility for the Giants. But, they've been taking it slowly. Everyone's been taking it slowly. The first domino that falls is the GM job with the Giants. And I don't think that means they're going to have a coach by Monday. I think it's going to be later rather than sooner. More than a week from now that they have their head coach, because Schoen is going to want to take the time and do it right. The Maras are committed to doing it right and taking their time and not rushing into anything, Miles.
Well, maybe they heard that epic rant that you had there where you didn't let me talk for like 5 minutes last week. I mean, maybe that's what they needed to hear. Because again, like I said, they're changing the way that they do things here when you bring in somebody who doesn't have ties to the organization. And whether it's Daboll, whether it's Frazier, you just at least think now that they're going to go through a really good process of trying to find a new head coach and identifying somebody that's going to be the proper leader of men for that locker room and for that organization. Because it's not necessarily just about the scheme and the X's and the O's, because just because somebody's a good coordinator does not necessarily mean that they're going to be a good head coach. Now, I think we can definitively say that Daboll and Frazier have been good coordinators. And if the Giants want to go in the direction of somebody who has experience, yeah, they can go with Leslie Frazier because he's been a head coach before. And I think that can play into his favor. But it's going to be about finding the right person who can lead the Giants into some sort of prominence. And that's not just going to come overnight either.
And by the way, don't think I'm going to let the insult pass because you tucked it in at the front end of your answer. If we're going to start pulling out stopwatches and get over-unders on how long a response is, I recall a time not that long ago where I got up, I left, I made a sandwich, I ate it, I had some chips, I came back, I forgot my phone, I went back to the kitchen and got it, I came back, and you were still going. So,
about the Browns
if we're going to start, if we're going to start doing that, door swings both ways.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.